Hello, Manchester, Hooksett, Auburn. This is the Progress Report, your weekly indispensable entry into the world of essential knowledge, entertainment, and danger.
Most dangerous hour in local
Most
TV.
dangerous hour in TV.
8 years running.
And we have got a really, really big show tonight.
Jam-packed.
Jam-packed. We wish we had more time than we have. So we're going to get right going. We are joined by Jim Moran, who's the Democratic candidate for the special election coming up in Tuesday, just 6 days away, in Wards 8, 9, and Litchfield. And he's seeking to replace our late real good contributor to the city, Andy Martell, who was elected to the seat but unfortunately passed away. So we have a special election coming up. He's won the primary and he's going to be with us.
South end of Manchester and Litchfield.
Good parts of the town, and got to have a good result in 8 and 9 to overcome a difficult part of this
So get out and vote, because special elections, 1-2 votes makes the difference.
This is all about turnout, and very few votes can decide. Your vote always counts, but it'll really count something like this. But my good friend Mike Farley has created this wonderful new feature on the Progress Report called The POTUS on the Progress, and he's ready with one tonight.
This edition of the POTUS Report on the Progress Report, it's a funny thing. I'm gonna quote John McCain. I wish I could claim this myself, but what he said about this administration is it's like waiting for the other shoe to drop with a centipede. And I had finished up this week's POTUS Report on the Progress Report, and not an hour ago, we hear that a special prosecutor has been appointed to look into the Russia matter, so superseding everything. But I'm going to go with this one, simply a timeline, folks. We're going to go back just about a week. Last Monday, May 8th, former Acting Attorney General Sally Yates and former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper testify in the Senate Judiciary Committee. And Yates asserts that the Trump administration knew that former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn was vulnerable to Russian blackmail at least 18 days before he was dismissed. That happened on Monday. Then on Tuesday, President Trump fired James Comey, and we've talked about how that was done. And immediately his surrogates go out and start telling the story that he was fired because of a report from the Deputy Attorney General. The following day, Wednesday, May 10th, President Trump meets with the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, and Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak in the Oval Office. That's the meeting where the American media was kicked out and the Russian media was allowed to stay. And, of course, then they disseminated all these pictures that were picked up by the American media. There was a lot of questions about that, and we'll get back to that a little bit later. Also on that day, just purely ironically, President Trump meets with former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger in the White House. That's just, the irony of that is just dripping. The following day, Monday, May 11th, less than a week ago, in an interview for NBC, President Trump explains, this is the Lester Holt interview, that he had decided to dismiss James Comey prior to and without regard to a recommendation from the Attorney General's office. Now, what he effectively did was saw off the limb out upon which all of his surrogates had gone for him. And of course, he just cut them right off at the ankles. The following day, last Friday, May 12th, President Trump suggests on Twitter the possibility of ceasing the practice of White House press briefings. He's not happy with the press, and he also issues a warning to James Comey that he ought to hope there are no tapes of their conversations. The weekend was remarkably quiet, but then on Monday, we are informed by reporting that during that meeting with Lavrov that we talked about just a second ago, classified information was leaked by the president to the Russians. Now, this was real serious classified information. They call it code word classified. It is that high up on the chain. It is the highest level, or one of the highest levels of top secret. And we know it happened because the intelligence people in the White House, when they heard what had happened, called the CIA and the FBI and told them that this had happened and that they ought to be aware of it. So, and it's not been denied. That's Monday. This week, Monday, a couple days ago. Then on Tuesday, The president issues a pair of tweets explaining that he had the right to share the information. Again, not denying it, although there were denials previously. And then we get to today, and surprisingly, I'd like to report this: there were no presidential tweets this morning.
But there is a special prosecutor, an independent counsel, whatever they call it.
Which was named less than about an hour and 15 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So that's just a timeline. I wanted to try to condense it. I said before that trying to keep up with the Trump administration's is like drinking out of a fire hydrant. I am going to amend that. It's like drinking out of Niagara Falls. So I just wanted to consolidate things. And last but not least, I just want to report something I read in the New York Times today. They reported that President Trump, in a fury, and that's a quote, described his staff and advisors as incompetent, and on that we can agree. And that's the POTUS report on the progress report for today, Bob.
Excellent.
I tried to get it done quick.
You certainly did. There was an awful lot there. But we do have a lot going on, folks. We welcome calls always, 640-3091. Jim, glad to have you with us here with 6 days to go to the special election. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want this job.
I want to thank you very much for having me on. I want this job because I believe I can serve the people of District 44 well. I'm a retired 30-year postal worker, 30-year union member. One of my concentrations would be on labor issues. I can assure the voters that if right to work ever crosses my desk, it has no chance. I'm also in favor of an increased minimum wage for New Hampshire. All our surrounding states have higher minimum wages. $7.50 an hour is a disgrace for our state.
I think it's $7.25, Jim.
So whatever it is,
It's puny.
businesses manage to operate in these other states. I think this whole concept of this so-called New Hampshire advantage it's gone away.
Yeah.
I mean, a New Hampshire advantage would be educating our youth in a proper fashion.
Yeah.
I mean, some companies won't move here because they want education. Workforce.
Yeah.
They want a trained and educated workforce.
Which is something New Hampshire has been known for in the past.
That's
And
correct.
we're losing our edge in that regard, I think.
We are doing a disservice to our next generation by losing our edge in that regard. Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
That's why education, especially technical education, would be one of my key interests along with labor matters.
Very good. Very good. That's really good to hear. Because I think that the fact that we have so weakened our unions has been a real blow, not just to working people, but to the country as a whole. Because unions advocated for things that are good for all people, I think. And I'm sure you would support, one thing that we don't yet have, and paid family leave.
Absolutely. I worked for the post office where we had unpaid family leave.
Yeah.
But the family leave is a federal law.
Yeah.
I would be in favor of paid family leave for. Sometimes you find families in crisis, maternity, caring for a sick relative. Sometimes you have an elderly relative you would like to care for in their final days, but they have to be placed in a nursing home because you can't take the time off from work.
Yeah. Yeah. So have you served in public office before?
No, I have never served in public office except for I was at one time moderator of Ward 8.
Okay. A distinguished position.
Yes,
indeed.
a highly distinguished position.
So the election's only 6 days away, and it's going to be, alas, we can reasonably expect it to be a low turnout election like special elections are. What are you telling people about where do people go to vote, and
Okay.
what do you want people to be able to do for you in the
Well,
6 days remaining?
I would like them to vote for me, obviously, James Moran, Democrat for state representative, and it includes Wards 8, 9, and Litchfield. Ward 9 votes at the Bishop O'Neill Center, which is the former Blessed Sacrament Parish Center. Ward 8 votes at Memorial High School, and Litchfield votes at Campbell High School. So I would urge people to get out. I've done a bunch of absentee applications to some of our older residents. So I've done that effort, but I can only urge people to get out on May 23rd, and I'm not asking them to do me a personal favor by doing so, but to think of the betterment of New Hampshire, I think I can do a better job, and I think it would be worth it for them to turn out on the 23rd. As somebody commented to me, my opponent just sent out a mailer, and it had all types of things he was going to do. But at the same time he was going to do all these accomplishments, he was going to cut taxes. So this individual put two and two together, and he said, how does that work?
Yeah. How do you do more with less resources?
That's the usual Republican line.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, but at the same time we're going to cut taxes.
Okay. Have you got people to help you hold signs at all these ward
Yes,
locations?
I do. I've
Very
had some
good.
very good friends volunteer to help me hold signs at the polls on election day. I will be going to the different polling places myself.
That's a good idea.
I will probably start at Ward 9 so I can vote in the morning and then hang around for a couple hours. And
Will you be doing some door-to-door campaigning?
I
Have
will
you
be
been
going
doing-
door to door from now till the election.
Okay, excellent. So there you have it, folks. Jim Moran, the Democratic candidate for District 44, Wards 8, 9, and Litchfield. And, you know, we're all feeling the results of the what's happening nationally. And we had another, you know, interesting development in the House today with a House member from Laconia resigning after claiming that he was not the misogynist that he plainly was. And these special elections, there'll certainly be one there. These special elections are very important, and I think they'll show not only what people think of Jim Moran, who seems to me like a very fine principled candidate for this office, but what they think about the direction of our state and our country. So they're very important. So I hope you'll get out and vote.
And you know, Bob, during a special election, your vote really is amplified. It really counts because the number of people that get out and vote is much diminished. So this is not going to be a situation where there's going to be many thousands of votes and your vote, you know, may be masked within there. This is going to be an election where it could be decided by 3, 4, or 5 votes.
Very likely.
Very small turnout.
Not at all difficult to imagine that.
And
being the case.
also, I would also call upon the people of Manchester. We have been gerrymandered in the last redistricting. They took what used to be 3 representatives from Ward 8 and 3 representatives from Ward 9, and they busted us up, and they put this they call it a flotarial zone, so that we may have someone from Litchfield representing us in Ward 8. I live in Ward 8, and I'm definitely going to vote for Mr. Moran on Tuesday. And I'm going to talk to my neighbors about doing that too. It makes a big difference. Do you want someone from Manchester representing you in Ward 8 and Ward 9, or do you want someone, you know, out of Litchfield, you know, who's going to get the vote out of Litchfield to represent you in Ward 8 and Ward 9? What do you want?
So we're about the end of our segment here, Jim.
Okay.
And I just don't know whether you have any closing
Well,
argument or
my
closing
only
thoughts.
closing thought would be I left it in the car, but I was going to bring it up to show it to Bob and Mr. Farley that something our commander-in-chief doesn't seem to be willing to do. I have my tax return in the car, and
You're releasing your tax return.
yes,
as part of your
I
election.
will be releasing my tax returns for anyone.
Shame upon the president. A New Hampshire state representative candidate is willing to release his tax return. Now that's guts. That's guts.
That's really great.
That is definitely guts. I love it.
So thank you very, very much, and I'll let you get on with your interesting program.
Okay. Thank you, folks.
Thanks, Jim. We
We're going to
appreciate
take
it.
a very quick break and bring in Will Stewart and Carol Gaiman to talk about the exciting new bike share program just about to launch here in Manchester. We'll be right back. Okay, folks, this is our second segment of the Progress Report, which airs this Wednesday and every Wednesday, and we're real excited today to have with us the two key spark plugs that have fired up the engine of improving the bike situation in Manchester. So excited to hear about this from two great people. We have Will Stewart, formerly with the Manchester Chamber of Commerce, now with the Londonderry Chamber of Commerce.
Correct.
Tried to reach her at the Londonderry town offices. That didn't work, but I'm glad we got the message. And Carol Gaiman.
Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
And welcome back. Carol, I don't think you've been on this before, but I'm thrilled to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Our families have been friends for a
Yeah.
long time up in the North End when I used to live there. And your daughter went to Dartmouth as a classmate of my son, and
Yeah.
they still feel a lot of
Connection.
connection.
Yeah.
Indeed, they do. And you guys have. And I know, Will, you'd been working on, making Manchester more bikeable for a long time. I don't know when you started on this, Carol, but this is a really exciting project. So tell us about it and how you got it going and when it's going to go.
Will, do you want to start?
Sure. Well, I can say that I'm the co-chair of a group called Bike Manchester, which is the city's bicycle advocacy organization. We work to make, like you said, the city more bike friendly. We want more people riding bicycles more often in the city, and we formed not that long ago, late fall of 2013. And we've made some progress in those years. There are now a few scattered bike lanes in the city. We
A
have
few
some,
scattered bike lanes.
That's the operative words.
it's more than we had when we
You
started.
need to connect them.
I think I heard somebody say the perfect is the enemy of the good earlier. So that's and we are working on that. We've gotten a number of new bike racks across the city in our time, and really worked with the DPW, the Department of Public Works, to now they have a policy basically where when they're resurfacing a street, if there's sufficient width, they'll go ahead and stripe a lane. That's why the lanes are kind of, a mile here, a mile there, 5 blocks here, that kind of thing.
Well, there should be a lot of new bike lanes over the course of this construction season because a lot of work's being done on Manchester streets this summer, as I understand it.
There is a lot going on, and so we've been kind of plugging along and making some progress. And then Carol came to one of our meetings about a year ago now, and do you want to take over from there and kind of let us know what you pitched us?
Yep. I am the liaison between the Granite YMCA and UNH Manchester. And my charge was to ensure that the students at UNH Manchester became more active. And they're all offered a complimentary membership to the YMCA. It's a really nice partnership. And as I was down there doing activities that would, fitness testing, what have you, I noticed that they just didn't have enough time to get from A to B at lunchtime. And for the most part, they're all working, and they have families, and they have very, very limited time. So this membership was for naught, really, because they didn't have time to get there. And I'd been to places
This
like...
would be going from UNH down to the mill yard up to the Y,
Exactly.
basically? Yeah.
Yep. And I'd been to places like New York and, of course, Boston as Hubway with their bike sharing. And it seemed like such a cool initiative. And I'm a biker as well. I go on biking vacations, and when I'm with friends, I try to get them out on a bike. And besides, I'm a really, really bad parker. I've got a huge Suburban, and I can't park a car. So I'd much rather be on a bike. So
They are easy to park.
Yeah. I contacted a company in Cambridge, Mass. By the name of Zagster. And they really cater to small cities like ours and college campuses. And they're in about 130 cities around the country right now.
Really?
Yeah. And they've been so cooperative with us. And so how it works is they set up we've gotten 6 sponsors for 6 different racks around the city. The sponsors include Southern New Hampshire University, Martin Eddy of New England, the Granite YMCA, the Puritan, and
McLean Middleton.
McLean, thank you, McLean Middleton.
Well, we should have a good law firm in there.
Yeah, exactly. And so they each have 5 bikes in their racks. And you go and you have to have a smartphone, and you download the app, and you put it in, and you get a special PIN number, and it unlocks the bike for you. So that you can...
And there's some charge to your credit card.
There's a charge to your credit card, but we have tried to keep it very, very cost effective. As Will said, the purpose of this is to really enhance the health and wellness of our city, to make it much more livable. An alternative transportation, it's not a revenue generator. So for $2 a day, you can rent the bike.
Yeah.
For $15 for a month, or for $30 membership for a year. And
Wow.
it's a great program.
Do the bikes have to be brought back to the place where you rented it out, or could you bring it, for example, could I pick up a bike at McLean Middleton and drop it off at the Puritan?
Yes, it is. They do not. Well, I should say they do not have to be returned to the exact station that you picked it up from, but they do have to be returned to a one of the special Zagster docking stations. But yes, in that situation, you mentioned that is possible.
You could do a one-way trip, I guess is what I'm getting to.
Correct, and we're partnering with the Bike Barn, one of the local
yeah.
bike shops down in the Mill Yard,
Yeah.
and they're going to be maintaining the bikes and what's called rebalancing the stations. So if one station has a few more bikes, like that would happen in that scenario, they'll come every few days and make sure the bikes are kind of more evenly distributed.
So they'll do the maintenance of these bikes. If you have a problem with the bike, is that who you call, or?
You call
So-
Zagster,
Yeah.
but they'll contact the Bike Barn as well. Even if you
Okay.
have a flat tire, they'll come to your rescue.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very efficient, and it's really neat that they
That's
use
better
local-
than if I have my own bike.
Exactly.
Because then I
Yes.
have to call my wife and explain myself.
Where am I?
This is a completely anonymous situation.
Yeah.
It would just come and get me out of my trouble. I like it. So far, I like it. You were talking about 6 stations, and I believe, if I'm remembering right, you said 5 bikes per station. So we're talking 30 bikes right now. Is that intended to be the full extent of it, or is that your pilot program? Is that enough to service Manchester? Tell us about the numbers that you're looking for.
That's definitely the minimum. It's a pilot program, and since the city has given us their endorsement from the mayor's office, but we've asked for no funding from the city at all. So it's all privately financed. So
By these 6 donors?
yes,
the
and
bike racks?
each sponsor, through their generosity, is they pay $9,000 per year to have their logos.
That's not a Little League sign. That's a major investment.
It is, and it's a commitment to the city and to the health and welfare of the city that they've made, really. We're so grateful. But we have lots of other people that we're going to visit because we really want this to grow.
Yeah.
And we want the bike racks in places with there's critical mass, and so they're visible. So when people drive into the city, they realize this is a really cool place to work and to live. And it's a
That
renaissance.
does have that effect. I work down in Boston a lot, and of course they've got
Yeah.
Hubway all over the place, and you see it. It's part of the landscape that you see, and it is your brain takes it in as that's part of what this city does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I also like about it, it's fitting in with what our city's trying to do with bike trails.
The rail trails.
Bruce Thomas from the Department of Public Works has been working tirelessly
Yeah.
with Will with the bike lanes and the sharrows, but he's also trying to connect so many of the bike trails that are there now, and they just received a federal grant for almost $800,000 to connect the Rockingham Bike Trail down to Fisher Cat Stadium and the one out from Gold Street all the way out to the airport.
Yep, that's right in my neighborhood, by the
It
way, and I'm
is.
very happy
Yeah.
to see that.
Yeah.
Of course, you got the Piscataqua Trail out to
Yes.
Goffstown, yeah.
Which is a real success, and I think has really spurred the idea that we have to make these other connections.
Yeah.
Because there are these very small gaps in what could be, extensive trails. I mean, I've hiked that Rockingham Trail. That goes a long way.
It does. It really does.
There's a lot of potential out there.
And people feel safe on a bike trail. So especially with a young family, I think you feel safer. But maybe, Will, you can address the safety issue because we've gotten that question a lot.
Yes,
Is
let's do
biking safe here?
Sure, and it's a little bit of the chicken or the egg scenario sometimes, I think, when it comes to bike safety. And some people will say, well, I can't imagine they'll see me riding on Elm Street or Maple Street or Beach Street, which admittedly gets a lot of traffic. And I think a lot of times it comes down to confidence. I've never felt unsafe, but I'm a confident rider because I have a lot of experience riding. But it's one of those things that I think when you don't see a lot of people riding out on city streets, there's a subconscious message that you take in is that, well, it must not be safe. I don't see a lot of people riding bikes. of course, the catch is that you need more people riding bikes before people feel safe riding bikes.
Yeah.
And so we're very hopeful that this, by sheer virtue of having 30 new bikes on the city streets, where people, they don't have to invest heavily to ride. They can get on, ride during their lunch break, but it provides that visibility. And the more people are seen riding bicycles, I think the more people you'll see pulling their own bikes out of their garages and basements.
Build on that perception.
And I am getting the idea that it would also have a calming effect on the traffic itself. Once there's a certain amount. I mean, how many people can you blow by at 40 miles an hour before you say, maybe I ought to take it easy a little
Right.
bit, on Maple Street or Union Street or
Exactly.
something.
Right, and that visibility, you're right, does have kind of an effect on motorists too. And one thing I always like to mention when talking about bicycles and vehicles is first of all, we're all motorists too. I mean. Carol drives a tank, I think, a Suburban. That's the biggest thing you can possibly drive. I have 3 cars parked in my driveway right now. So we're not. This is by no stretch is this anti-car. But I do think it will have the effect of you're really helping drivers with that visibility. The more you see, the more cognizant you are, and just like the campaign we've seen in recent decades with motorcyclists, the more
Yeah.
motorcyclists they are, the more cognizant you are when you're changing lanes and zipping by. So I think it'll have a similar effect here in the city.
Let me ask you, suppose I decide I feel like doing something with my phone. I'm going to have to ask how to do that. But, I want to take a bike and I want to go out on my lunch break, but I don't have a bike helmet. Is that okay? Is there any requirement of personal safety gear? What's your policy on that?
They don't supply bike helmets, but at our launch, obviously we want everyone to ride with a helmet for safety reasons. So if you're becoming a regular user of the bike share system, you might think of bringing your bike helmet in your backpack or your briefcase to work. But at our launch, what Zagster has done in the past is they give out 50% off coupons for our local bike stores to purchase bike helmets.
Oh boy,
Which
that's an economy booster too.
It
That's-
is, yeah, it is. The fact that they hire local mechanics is really great, we think, instead of bringing people up from Cambridge.
And what sort of a bike do you get? Do you get
That
a?
was my next question.
Yeah.
Is
Is
it a big
thin tire
balloon
bike?
tire?
Is it an all-terrain bike, or does it have 12 gears, or what kind of a bike do you get?
Go ahead.
It's a really cool bike. They're Specialized. I think they're made by Specialized.
I believe so.
And they're very sturdy. It's a little hardier than a hybrid. So they're not road bikes like you'd see us going around at 35 miles an hour. And they're very wide with upright handlebars, and they've got lights on the front and the back. So they're cruisers, essentially, and fun to ride. They make you feel like a child again. It's just fun to ride. Life is better on a bike.
They
And-
come with a bell, so you can
I think there is some kind of noise
horn
machine.
or something. Let people know you're coming.
Gotta have that bell.
So, how did you go about developing this? Were there surveys? Did you work with city departments? This Zagster, I'm not familiar with that, but you've talked about that. Was there another city comparable to Manchester that you looked to for
Yeah.
for a model?
That's a good question. When we started this, I had heard that there was a city in Indiana, Carmel, Indiana, who is very similar in terms of population size and in terms of environment, because a lot of people say, well, what are you going to do in the winter? So I called the mayor of Carmel, and he said it's been a huge success. They launched with 6 racks as well, and now they're up to 12 or 15 racks after a year and a half.
Really, that's great.
And what they do in the winter, it's called hibernation. So the racks are left out, but they take the bikes off the street from perhaps December to March, just so there's no damage to the bikes. And interestingly enough, Carmel, Indiana was just named one of the best cities in which to live in the United States about a month ago.
Well, this kind of thing really is a quality of life kind of a thing. It's a youthful thing. It's a mobile thing. It moves throughout the city. The bikes, I'm going to assume, just from my experience in other cities, are going to kind of stand out. You're going to know that you're riding on one of these program bikes.
Yeah.
So it'll advertise itself.
Yeah.
All these other businesses in town are going to see their potential competitors out advertising on these bikes, and should dive right in and write a check to you guys to get
That's what we're
to
hoping.
get a spot, right?
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carol and I have been quite the tag team, going around to talking to different business leaders, around town and making the pitch. And I think that, like I said, we've had some, kind of our early adopters who are showing a little faith. And I think that once the bikes are on the street, though, and people see it and it's real, we're gonna see the program expand.
Now, what happens if it becomes very, very popular, and people want to use it, but it's so popular that the 6 stations are always empty? And I don't mean to be a naysayer. That's not what I'm trying to do.
Well, this is
but
the problem they'd like to have.
Good problem to have.
Yeah.
it's not a bad problem to have, but if you're trying to grow something, you want to have a positive experience as people, say, I'm going to try to experience this. What do you have something in mind for that, or is it just a matter of hustling and trying to get more stations into the city?
We've been looking at locations. Interesting you ask that, because the original intent of this was to really link the Mill Yard to Elm Street. There's no linkage. And the people that are working...
And that's something that the city's struggled with since they filled in the canal.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And there's a group entitled Manchester Connects that's working on it.
Right.
With a group from Boston called Civic Moxie.
Yeah, I love that name.
Yeah, me too. And so they're trying to work on it. This is one component of that. But we see there's 1,000 workers in the Mill Yard daily, and they're stuck because there's no parking. And
Right.
once they park that car, they're not going to give up that spot. It's so dear. So this is another way to connect to downtown businesses, to food, recreation, or just to get out and be healthy.
And we'd like to see stations on the west side, too.
Yeah,
Connect
don't
that
leave
with
out the
the
west
city.
side.
Oh,
I'm
don't
living
worry.
over there now.
Never.
Wow.
I know you're a
wanna
proud
see-
resident of Ward 12.
I am indeed. Yeah, that's where I represent. Did you do surveys, or did what did it take to make sure that we had that you would have the interest that you need to have this program work?
Well, not surveys so much. I mean, this has been a topic, at least within the bicycling community at Bike Manchester meetings, that people have said, since we've been meeting since 2013, wouldn't it be neat if Manchester had something like that? So I think, just kind of anecdotally, we knew that there would be, we'd have these, early adopters.
Well,
And
you
I-
probably have talked to 30 people who think it's a good idea, right? So you're not getting out over your skis here.
Right.
I mean, this is a very modest start,
Yeah.
but a great idea. And people who haven't given it any thought, you've been doing this for 4 years, people who haven't given it any thought, the light bulb may go on, and we have a multiplier effect.
Right, and that's the reason too why we're not. We didn't say, well, we need to wait until we have 20 stations to do it. I mean, it is a pilot project, so we're testing kind of our proof of concept right now. That said, Carol made the rounds talking to the downtown committee at the Chamber of Commerce and some other groups to kind of get feedback. And as we've been making the rounds, making our sponsorship pitches, we've been hearing how great it is. And I think that even if you're not a bicyclist, that you will benefit from this. You're kind of hitting on your earlier point of I always like to say I don't go to the symphony, but I like living in a city that has that kind of offering. And I think this is just another kind of indicator that we live in a city in an up and coming place.
Yeah,
And
on the move.
particularly from a city literally on the move. And we were talking to the folks at McLean Middleton, of course, the downtown law firm right at City Hall Plaza, and what a great amenity to have. They can have right outside their law firm. They're bringing in your new potential lawyers, your new graduates, to say, hey, come work for our firm. That speaks volumes. You can say Manchester's great. We have all these offerings. We have the arena. We have the ball park.
You don't
But
even
they
have to
can-
mention it. It's right there
it's
when
right
they
there.
walk in the
They
door.
walk right past it, and that sends a signal that this city gets it, and
Yeah.
it's a cool place. And over and above all the health benefits, the environmental benefits, the parking alleviation that'll help out with. I mean, that alone, I think it really helps with the city's reputation and perception.
We had, when we first started this, we met with Jamie Hobecki from the health department. And just I think a year ago, our city was named it received a Cultural Heritage Award for Healthful City.
Yeah, from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation.
Exactly. And all I could think of, I'm sorry to plug your book, but Will's written a book about Manchester. And he claims in the preface that we have an inferiority complex here. And
I
because
take his point.
Yeah.
I haven't read the book, but I take your point.
someone else asked me on an NPR interview, well, why Manchester? Well, why not Manchester? It's time.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yep, it's time.
I mean, I think that's so exciting that we are, I guess you said they're doing something up at Dartmouth, which is sort of already in Vermont, in my opinion, but, this is really a big step forward for the city among the cities of northern New England, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I just think it's remarkable and wonderful and very excited that this is about to launch.
Well, thank
We
you.
are told our time for a break.
Let's take a quick break. We'll regroup. I'm sure we'll have something to talk about on the other side of it. But folks, you can call in 640-3091
Yeah.
if you have any questions about this. If you happen to have $9,000 lying around and would like to have a bike rack in, outside your business.
We actually need 18 because it's a 2-year pilot project.
Well, we'll talk numbers later. But come on and call in. Is this something that you're interested in? Is this something that excites you? Do you think it's a big old waste of time and we
Is
shouldn't
this
do
something
it?
you would use? That's really interesting. Okay, we'll be right
See
back.
you in a second.
So this is the progress report for May 17th. I'm here with my good friend Mike Farley, and this is going to be our last segment on this week's progress report, but we are
Perfect
very
segment for the
pleased.
springtime, right?
It's
It's time
springtime.
to get out. We had a nice warm day today. It's going to be warmer tomorrow. I mean, this is
If they launched tomorrow, they'd have to have shower facilities. We
It's just a great topic
We are
to talk
talking
about.
with Will Stewart and Carol Gaiman about the fact that they have had the initiative and the drive to get to the point we are about ready to launch the first major bike share program in northern New Hampshire, with the exception of something up in the Dartmouth area. But for a city like Manchester, this is a new thing, and it's very exciting. We all know that today we want to make our city more attractive, and nothing better to help make our city more attractive, especially the kind of people we want to attract, young families and younger people, than making the city a joy to get around in without having to use a car. And so we have now, we are developing our trail system, and that's going well. And we now have, thanks to these folks, about to have a bike share program that's, to me, quite unique. It's certainly not without precedent, but it sounds just like a really neat idea. It's starting off as a pilot program. If you were with us, know that going to start off with 6 stations, and I think the launch date is June 5th.
Yep.
So only a couple of weeks away, a little more than a couple of weeks away. And what is the? You mentioned, I thought that was a very good example, Carol, about the people at UNH that wanted to get to the Y to take advantage of a discount at the Y, or free service at the Y, but they didn't have the time. And this would help because you're going to have a bike stand down there and a bike stand in. Is it at the Y or at the Middleton?
Yep, we have stations, one at the YMCA,
Yeah.
And then we have one at 1232 Elm Street, which is where Southern New Hampshire has their sandbox, which is where the president works, and it's right next to Mass College of Pharmacy, so there's a critical mass there.
Yep.
There's one at the Puritan Restaurant, and who needs directions to that?
Yeah, right.
And they can access the trail around Livingston Pond and
Get a
all
good
sorts-
vigorous bike ride. You won't feel so guilty ordering that ice cream.
Right.
Sure. And-
There's also going to be a rack in front of McLean Middleton at City Hall Plaza.
Yep.
There's going to be one at Stanton Plaza, so it's adjacent to the SNU Arena.
Yep.
And then there's going
And right
to
in front of the Radisson.
Yep.
So visitors
Yeah.
could take
Right.
advantage of it
Kind
as
of
well.
right. I mean, that's two right in the heart of downtown, within a couple blocks of each other. So
Yep.
that's 10 bicycles available between City Hall and Veterans
Yep.
Park.
So in addition to all these students we have at all our institutions of higher learning, we have a lot of them in the city. People don't realize that Manchester really is a college town.
We're the biggest college town in New Hampshire.
It really
in Northern
is.
New England, for that matter. There are more college students
we
here
got
than
7 institutions. Got it went up at your alma mater, St. Anselm, huh? You know, workout climbing up that hill. Up there.
Let me tell you, I've walked up that hill. I could have used a bike.
But you know what other in addition to the students, which I would think would be very enthused about, what other kinds of people do you think might be interested in using this? Just people interested in fitness, I'm sure, but what about others?
we envision there's a lot of high-tech workers down in the mill yard now
Yep.
at Dine and Autodesk and Riverstone, and new businesses are coming in constantly. So we foresee a lot of the millennials wanting to use this service. And as Will said, there's a new hotel going up.
I was just going to say, there's a brand new hotel
Yep.
going up right in the mill yard that is
Yep.
designed for high-tech visitors to come in and do business with the
Yep.
companies you just mentioned,
Yep.
and how perfect a match that would be for that type
Yep.
of business traveler, wouldn't it?
And at the Hilton Garden Inn, we're desperately trying to get one down near
Down by the park or the ballpark.
near the
yeah.
stadium, Northeast Delta Dental Stadium.
Oh yeah. That would
Because
be a
they
good
can,
site.
Yep.
trail
So-
access there too. And we
Yeah.
have, relatively, although the new apartments that have been built in the past couple of years, Lofts
Yeah.
at Mill number 1, they're at 200 Bedford Street.
And you
up on
connect
Elm
over
Street
the bridge to that
Citizens.
whole west side rail trail out to Goffstown.
Yeah.
That's a great ride. And by the way, I wanted to mention, you mentioned it a couple times in the show, these trails. My wife and I have gone out and hiked on that trail. There's traffic.
Yeah.
There are families and individuals and small groups. There is traffic going in both directions on those
Right.
trails.
Well, it's-
on a weekend or on a time when, most people would have some time to do that.
I just had that same thought today. I was with a friend, and we were going around the trail at Doors Pond, and it was jammed. And it's just proof that if you build it, they'll come. They'll use it.
Yep. We certainly see that with our trails.
Well, I'm kind of excited because, as I mentioned, in the South End we have these bits and pieces, and if we could get that connected, I'm looking forward to having that potentiality down in my neighborhood too. That would
it's,
really be great.
it's more than potential. It's happening. The funding's been approved at the federal level, and the BMA has given the local match, so they're doing engineering right now, and construction will begin extending both the South Beach Rail Trail, north and south, beginning next year. So
Yeah,
it's
very-
happening.
It's very, very, very exciting. Well, in the unlikely event that being on this program doesn't inform everybody in the world about this, what other efforts are you making to make sure people know about this, I think, rather signature launch on June 5th?
Well, we'll have a pretty robust media effort, and we've already gotten a fair amount of coverage, both in the Union Leader and New Hampshire Public Radio and Manchester Inklink, and a couple of the other programs around town. We'll be doing more of that, around the launch, and that'll be a big media event again, 4 p.m. Monday, June 5th at Stanton Plaza. Have a big launch, and we're going to try to get all 30 bikes out and have a nice. Get some Manchester luminaries out on bikes, and it'll be a lot of fun. And then we'll be.
That will be a lot of fun. I
It will
had
be.
a few just cross my mind. That would be very fun to see. I would show up for
I'm
that.
trying. Where's
I am not going to say a word. I'm going to keep that to myself.
I'll say it. Where's the camera? What camera am I looking at? Mayor Gatsis, if you're watching, I want you on a bike.
There you go. That's good.
We'll also be making the rounds at the colleges when they come back in session in the fall. Setting up tables and giving out literature, and a lot of the large downtown and mill yard employers, because I think that'll be the kind of our base group, and as well as sharing literature with those people who live downtown and the mill yard too.
Yeah. Now, big cities doing this too? I mean, you mentioned Carmel, Indiana, which was an interesting comparison to Manchester, but is this working successfully in other American cities?
It's unbelievable.
Really?
It really is a movement.
Yeah.
I'd gone on successful bike share launches and just Googled it, and I want to say every city, but it's really taking off.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
And you said, Mike, this is happening in Boston.
I'm down in Boston. All that redevelopment on the waterfront, every bit of it includes bike racks for those who have bikes and a station for those who don't. Up and down, the entire waterfront is designed for that kind of experience. And you know what? It's a real different experience. As bikers, I would not put myself in your class, but I have ridden a bike, and it's just nice to get down at the street level. But be able to cover some territory and be able to experience what's out there, what's around you. The neighborhoods that you didn't give two thoughts about because you were looking at the red light 2 blocks up, you get to actually see what's on your left
Yeah,
and
you
on
see
your
the
right.
city in a whole different
You
way.
You really do. It
Whether you're on
slows it.
bike or on foot, they all have a different
But the thing
perspective.
is, you also, at least I'm going to talk personal experience, you get to move at a speed that my crummy old legs can't take me otherwise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With it's low impact. And these bikes, I have a cruiser myself. It's my wife's, but I steal it all the time.
Do you have a bell?
I do. I have a bell. I have a basket too. Had to. But these bikes are very comfortable. You're not bent over you don't have to be a bike racer. They're very comfortable.
Spandex not required.
Exactly. In my case, preferred not. But you see people taking these things out. They're part of the landscape of the city. They become part of what you experience as you move through the city, and I'm very excited about this idea. I'm definitely going to, even though like I said, I do have a bike that I ride, I'm going to try to go downtown and take one of these things just to kind of be part of it.
You're welcome to take one of them on the launch.
I'll have to get
You're
I'll
an
have to get
invited
the
guest.
app. I'll have to get the app and figure this out. But
Yeah,
it
and if
sounds
you come
very
to the-
easy to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you come to the launch at 4 p.m. on Monday, June 5th at Stanton Plaza, we'll have demonstrations as well. So you can, everything from how to download the app to how to enter your credit card information to how to use it to unlock one of the bikes.
So it's 4 p.m. on June 5th at Stanton Plaza. That's where it all breaks out.
Yep.
Correct.
People get introduced to it. Do these bikes, will they have any baskets or things that you can, you talk about students, they may have, backpacks and things. You'd be able to use bikes to get around with stuff like that?
I think that's the coolest part of the bikes, that they have got huge baskets, which, if you're going to do an errand, you need a
You
basket.
can do your shopping.
Right.
And it really serves our sponsors well, because on the front of each basket is their logo. And then on the app, their logo appears there, and it's on their rack.
Well, I'm
as
thinking
well.
of another whole use. I see a lot of people who live downtown, may not have a car. We were fortunate now, at least we have a downtown grocery store, which we were without
Yes.
for so long. But that's a long schlep when you're carrying bags. And if you could just, for short money, rent a bike, put them
Yeah.
in the basket, ride home, bring the bike back. Now you can walk home with nothing
Yeah.
burdening you.
The beauty of the Zagster bikes in Boston, if you were to rent a bike at Hubway or City Bike, you have to go from station to station because there's no internal locking. With the Zagster bike, and they're rolling out a Bluetooth something in July, you can actually, if you wanted to go to the Courier Gallery and there was no rack there, which we hope to have soon, there is a lock actually in the box in the back. So you could lock it to one of the Bike Manchester racks or to something that's stationary.
A signpost or something.
Yeah.
I see people
Yeah.
doing that all the time.
Yeah.
So it comes with it.
Yeah.
Right,
So
you're
it's
not
better
limited.
than Boston.
Yeah, it is much better than Boston.
So, have you got a separate organization to do all this, or who's actually in sort of in charge of this bike share?
Well, Bike Manchester has adopted it as one of its major initiatives.
Correct. Yeah, Bike Manchester is kind of the overseeing parent organization, and our fiscal agent, the Bike Walk Alliance of New Hampshire, will be
Okay.
doing some of the background assisting as well.
So there's a board of directors and something like that?
Yeah, we have a very active group that will be overseeing this, and Carol is kind of heading the bike share committee, as it were.
Okay. And our Department of Public Works, we've got Bruce, what's his last name?
Thomas.
Bruce Thomas. He's very, very enthusiastic about making Manchester more bikeable. I assume that you've
He
had
is.
all kinds of good support from him
Yes.
and the department on this, right?
Very much so.
Yeah.
We could not have done it without them. They've been great advocates.
They've been very helpful in helping us, cite the actual, stations. As you might imagine, they take up a fairly sizable footprint,
Yeah.
and you have to make sure all of the if you're putting it on public rights of way, sidewalks, you have to make sure there's enough room for, say, a wheelchair to get by and two people to
Right.
walk abreast and all of these things. So
Right.
it's taken a little bit of work, and they've definitely, Bruce and Todd Connors and the whole team over there has really done a
And
good
how
job.
long has it taken from the time whoever had this idea, well, maybe the
It was Carol's inspiration. It's her,
Carol's inspiration?
her baby.
I can believe it. How long? When did you have the inspiration? How long does it take it to bring it to the point where you're about to?
It's been over a year and a half.
A year and a half, huh?
Yeah, but it's been worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many hours do you think?
I don't- I'll call Ben and find out. Don't
ask her.
Believe me.
It'll depress her. Don't ask her that.
About 3,000 or 4,000, I would assume. Over the course of a year and a half, I think that's a good estimate.
No, Carol deserves the lion's share of credit for this. If not for her, it wouldn't happen. She's been the driving force and lighting fires all over town. And thankfully, she's the perfect person to do it because no one can say no to Carol Gaines.
Yeah, right. I know that to be true. Well, folks, this has been so exciting. You can see we've gotten excited. We couldn't wait to have you folks join us, and I just think this is the exact kind of thing that Manchester needs
it's
to
perfect.
make it to its. I think what's the name of your book? Well,
An Insider's Guide to Manchester
it's still around. Where can you get that?
at manchguide.com.
Okay. I have not read that, but I remember, and I gotta get that. I think you're right. I think we do have something inferiority complex, but I think this will help.
Yeah, we got
End that.
to get past that.
Yeah.
Gotta get
This
past
city
that.
has
This
nothing to be
city's-
ashamed of.
Absolutely
Nothing to be
not.
ashamed of. We're doing well, and we got problems. We're doing very, very well. Well, folks, that's it for this edition of the Progress Report.
This was a fun one.
This was a really fun one. We thank Jim Moran for coming in, and we certainly thank Will and Carol for not only joining us, but for all they've done in this wonderful contribution to the life of our city. And June 5th, 4 p.m. at Stanton Park. Sounds like a fun place to be, folks,
Everyone welcome.
and everybody's welcome. Okay.
But before that, next Tuesday, Ward 8, Ward 9, get out and vote. I'm watching.
Yeah. And, I just mentioned, I know we got to wrap it up, but you mentioned your POTUS report was really something tonight. But we had news in the State House today, too. The representative who was
From Laconia?
from Laconia, who was a dilettante at his job and didn't even have a committee assignment, but had put these misogynist things on. Although he skated by with the Legislative Administration Committee, he resigned today after it came out that he may not have been entirely candid in his testimony. So that was another thing that happened today. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be back next week with another edition of the Progress Report.